I got home earlier than usual. In my left hand, a paper bag with Thai takeout. In my right, a bottle of Jasmine's favorite wine. The same one she used to say went perfectly with spicy basil chicken. Our little tradition. I'd replayed this moment 100 times in my head, rehearsing how her face would light up when she saw me standing in the doorway, how she'd smile the same way she did back when we just started dating. I'd even planned the joke I'd make. Guess who's the romantic tonight? But the house was too quiet. No greeting from the hallway. No candlelight. No laughter drifting from the living room. Only a faint sound, soft, muffled, coming from somewhere deeper inside. I let the front door click shut behind me, set the bag down on the counter, and stood still, trying to steady my breath. Something felt wrong. That sound, I couldn't ignore it anymore. A low, warm giggle. The kind you can't mistake for a TV show or a podcast. Too real, too human. I walked down the hall, my fingers brushing the wall, like I needed the texture to keep me grounded. The bedroom door was slightly open, just enough for a thin line of lamplight to spill across the carpet. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it wanted out of my chest. For a second, I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was a FaceTime call. Maybe her sister dropped by. But the truth pressed against my ribs like a knife. My hand found the doorknob before I even realized what I was doing. It was warm under my palm. I turned it slowly, the way a man does when he already knows he shouldn't. And there she was, Jasmine, her hair a mess, her skin glowing faintly in the dim light, and next to her, Logan, shirtless, my best friend since high school, the guy who stood next to me on my wedding day, hand on my shoulder, promising he'd always have my back. My stomach dropped, like I'd taken a punch straight to the gut. Every memory, the jokes, the late-night beers, the shared struggles, flashed in my head like snapshots from a life I no longer recognized. She didn't scream, didn't even flinch, just looked at me, eyes cold, lips twisted into a smirk, like she'd been expecting this, like I was the one who walked into the wrong scene. She tilted her head slightly. Her voice, smooth as silk, said, "So what are you gonna do? Cry." The words cut deep, sharp and cruel. My throat went dry. I wanted to yell, to throw something, to burn it all down, but the anger evaporated before it could even rise. What replaced it was stillness. Logan's eyes met mine for half a second before he looked away. His face, a mix of guilt and shame. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even try. He wasn't the hero I once saw him as. Just a coward in someone else's bed. The silence between us grew heavy, filled with all the years of trust, laughter, and secrets we once shared. And then I smiled. No rage, no words, no emotion, just a quiet, final smile. When I reached for the door, my hand didn't shake. My heart didn't race. It was over for both of them. No tears, no questions, just a choice. I stepped out and closed the door behind me. The click of the lock sounded like a period at the end of a long sentence. That was the last moment I lived for anyone but myself. Standing in the hallway, breathing in the scent of Thai food from the kitchen, I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath for far too long. The air felt heavier now, not with pain, but with freedom. Jasmine's laughter no longer had power over me. Logan's betrayal didn't sting anymore. I was free, not because they let me go, but because I decided to walk away. I thought about the nights Logan and I watched games together, laughing like brothers, about Jasmine's eyes on our engagement night, how they sparkled when she said she'd always choose me, about every lie, every late night at work, every missed call that suddenly made sense. Then I let it all go. I grabbed the takeout bag, holding it carefully, almost like a trophy. I didn't need their explanations, or their tears, or even their shame. All I needed was this quiet, defining moment to gather the pieces of myself I'd given away. I walked out without looking back. My footsteps on the wet asphalt sounded steady, sure. For the first time in years, my life felt like it finally belonged to me. The bag felt heavier than it should have. The wine, still unopened, promised sweetness that now felt like a lie. I carried it anyway. Maybe I'd drink it alone. Maybe I'd throw it away. Didn't matter. Outside, the world smelled of rain, clean and sharp, and I breathed it in like it was the first breath of my new life. I got into my car and stared at my reflection in the rear-view mirror. Harder now, maybe stronger. The face of a man who'd been broken, but decided he'd never be weak again. I started the engine. The dashboard lights flickered like a promise, and as I drove away, I never looked back. I leaned forward, closing the space just enough for her to feel the finality in my voice. "Do you remember that night?" I asked quietly. "When I caught you with Logan?" You looked at me and said, "What are you going to do?" "Cry." She blinked, the memory hitting her like a slap. "Well," I said, "I didn't cry. I planned." The words hung between us. Her mouth opened like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. In this new life, I'd learned something sacred. Closure is internal. You can wait years for apologies that'll never come. Or you can learn to forgive yourself. You can lose your mind asking why they did it. Or accept that sometimes the question is a cage. I choose freedom. Revenge doesn't need an audience. It's quiet. It's patient. It's the act of building something better. A life so full that their absence becomes the least interesting part of your story. When they expect you to cry, smile. Not because it feels good right away, but because it will. And they won't even notice when it happens. That's what I've learned. Standing here 6 months after signing the last divorce paper, my smile isn't for them anymore. It's for me. It's a promise that I'll never again let their choices define my worth. Sometimes I wonder if Jasmine scrolls through my stories, sees the photos with friends, the late-night work sessions, the weekends at the lake, the foundation I built on my own ashes. Maybe she realizes she gave me the greatest gift, the freedom to choose myself. Maybe she doesn't. Either way, that's her story to rewrite. Mine belongs to me. And Logan? Last I heard, he moved to some small city where no one knows his name, started another consulting gig, already rumored to be shady. That's his ghost to carry. I gave him enough loyalty to last a lifetime. He gave me a lesson instead, that even the closest people can hold a match meant to burn you down. But here's the thing. A match only matters if you let it catch fire. And I've learned to walk through the smoke with my head held high, letting the wind carry the ashes far from my door. Let them wonder how I stayed calm, how I kept my dignity, how I turned every shard into something solid and whole. Let them wonder, because I've learned when they expect you to beg, to break, to crumble, you owe them nothing but silence. And maybe, if you're feeling generous, a smile, not because they deserve it, but because you do. A smile that says, you gave it your best shot, and I'm still standing. Stronger, wiser, better, and you'll never even see it coming. New rules. Closure is my choice. Revenge is quiet. And when they think they've won, I'll be the first to smile and burn the rest later. Because the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving to myself that I was right when I walked away and every step forward is mine. To laugh at my pain, to humiliate me, to look me in the eyes and say, "What are you going to do?" Cry. That was the moment she lost me, and no amount of tears or apologies could ever bring me back. One evening, as the sun slipped below the horizon and the sky turned that soft gray just before night, I sat on my balcony with a glass of whiskey in hand. The city hummed below, horns, laughter, the rhythm of life carrying on. I thought about everything I had lost and everything I had gained. I lost a wife who never truly loved me. I lost a friend who was never really on my side. But I gained something far more valuable, myself. I found a version of me that didn't need anyone's approval to feel whole. The version that could stand tall, alone and unbothered by their noise. The next morning, I found an envelope at my door, thin, trembling with desperation. Her handwriting, small, neat, fragile. I held it for a long time, weighing its importance, feeling its weakness. Then I dropped in the trash, unopened. Whatever she had to say didn't matter anymore. The time for words had passed. She'd had her chance to speak to me. She chose instead to speak at me, to laugh, to mock, to humiliate. Now the only voice that mattered was my own. At the office, Carmen looked up from her desk and smiled when I walked in. "Good morning, Mr. Roy." Her tone was steady. I returned the smile. "Good morning, Carmen. Let's get to work." That was it. No drama, no hesitation. Just life, moving forward, as it always does. I realized something that day. Life is just a series of choices that shape who you become. And I'd made mine. I chose me. Every signature on those divorce papers was a step toward the man I was meant to be, without the dead weight of betrayal pulling me down. That same afternoon, I got a text from Jared. "If you ever want to grab a drink or just clear your head, let me know. You're a good man, Roy." I smiled. My chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. Maybe I'd take him up on that one day. But for now, I was content with the quiet. The quiet wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. The sound of my own heartbeat, steady and sure, no longer drowned out by other people's noise. In that silence, I found my strength. I didn't need Jasmine's tears or Logan's apologies. I didn't need anyone's approval but my own, because in the end, the only voice that mattered was the one in my head saying, "You did the right thing." And I listened to it like gospel. A week later, Jasmine showed up at my office. I was in the middle of a call with a new client, a small real estate group expanding their portfolio, when Carmen's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Roy, your wife, your ex-wife, is here." The word ex hung in the air, heavy and final. I let it sit for a moment, tasted its closure, then let it go. "Send her in," I said evenly. The client on the line paused. "We can reschedule if you'd like." I shook my head, though he couldn't see it. "No need. Let's finish this." I wrapped up the deal with practice calm, ended the call, and looked up as Jasmine walked in. She looked different. No makeup, hair tied up in a messy knot, like she was trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Her eyes were swollen, red, like she hadn't slept in days. She clutched her phone like a talisman, thumb brushing the screen again and again. I didn't stand. I didn't offer her a seat. She lingered in the doorway, caught between wanting to flee and wanting to beg. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice fragile, almost breaking. I exhaled slowly. "Sure." The word felt like ice in my mouth. I nodded toward the chairs in the reception area. Impersonal, too bright, made for strangers. She hesitated, then sat on the edge of one like it might bite. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "What do you want, Jasmine?" Her name felt foreign on my tongue, like the alias of someone I used to know. She stared at the floor. Her fingers drummed nervously on her phone. "I messed up," she whispered. "I know I did, but can't we at least try?" She looked up at me, eyes desperate, searching for a man who once would have moved mountains to make her smile. But that man was gone. Most of those days I spent in my office, the place I've always felt most sure of myself. Stacks of papers rose around me. Divorce filing, contracts, investment decks. My desk became a fortress. Every sheet another brick in the wall between my past and my future. Whenever Jasmine's name surfaced in the documents, I signed like I was exorcising a ghost, because that's what she was now, a phantom from a life that was never truly mine. Whenever an email from Logan's firm popped up, one more plea to save whatever was left, I smiled and hit delete, let him sift through the rubble. I had no interest in playing rescuer. In the evenings, I drove to the apartment I'd rented the day I left. Nothing special, just a one-bedroom on the east side with a view of the river, but it felt like mine. I'd sit on the balcony, city lights spread out below like a map of places I still hadn't gone. Sometimes I'd fix myself a simple drink and watch the boats drift by, feeling how different everything was now. I wasn't angry anymore. The anger had burned out, replaced by a quiet certainty that I'd done the right thing. It felt clean, like a room with the windows finally open. Sometimes, when the phone buzzed in the dark, I'd pick it up and see her name, Jasmine. Voicemails I never listened to, texts I never read. Sometimes she'd just call, hang up, call again, as if repetition could undo the damage. It couldn't. She didn't understand that the damage wasn't just the cheating. It was the choice she made in that moment. I'm out. He's a walking liability. I could almost see her, hair pulled back, phone to her ear, eyes scanning balance sheets while she talked. She didn't waste time on sentiment, and I respected that. Understood, I said. Smooth, precise. I'll coordinate the asset transfer. She paused. I've always liked you, Roy. You work clean. I almost laughed. I try. She ended with a clipped, good luck. And the click in my ear felt like a guillotine dropping on Logan's fragile empire. I didn't need to check the news to know what was coming. Chaos would hit his office by noon. Staff, already wary of his shaky leadership and the rumors, would start looking for exits. People don't wait for the ship to sink before they reach for the lifeboats. By midday, my phone buzzed with screenshots and messages from mutuals. You hear what happened at Brooks Consulting? HR found some sketchy emails. People are bailing. He's trying damage control, but it's too late. They stacked up like trophies. Each one a receipt of the chaos I'd triggered with a single well-placed move. Jasmine's law firm, always eager to distance itself from scandal, placed her on administrative leave pending an internal review. I read the notice on their site. My smile was tight, but real. The same partners who once praised her dedication now called her a risk factor. I pictured the conference room. Polite but cold voices, disappointment cutting sharper than any blade. And I felt nothing. No pity. No triumph. Just the quiet inevitability of consequences finally arriving. I updated the drive. Added part 2, a digital graveyard of extra proof I gathered. Emails between Logan and Jasmine about hotel bookings, laughing at my expense. Transaction logs showing her using my card to fund their little getaways. All of it time-stamped. Undeniable. No commentary. No edits. The facts didn't need my voice to scream. They were loud enough on their own. After the last file uploaded, I leaned back and took a long breath. I thought about all the times I gave them the benefit of the doubt, all the late nights I worked to build a life they both enjoyed, never realizing they were building a separate one without me. I thought about Logan's promises of loyalty, Jasmine's vows of devotion, the laughter that once echoed through our home like a promise of forever. And then I let it go. It wasn't part of me anymore. I was clean of it, clean of them. I stood at the window. The city stretched out below, a weave of streets and stories that had nothing to do with mine. A man in a suit hurried across the crosswalk, briefcase swinging, face set like a mask. Was he chasing something or running from it? Maybe both. I knew the feeling. My phone vibrated again. A message from Rena, the managing partner at Logan's firm. Logan spiraling. Staff panicking. Investors pulling out. If you want to step in, now's the time. I smiled. Even the vultures were nervous. But I had no interest in picking through the wreckage. I'd already taken what I came for. Truth, closure, the freedom to move on. I typed back, "Thanks for the update. Let him burn." Sometimes the best revenge is velvet, just watching them collapse under the weight of their own choices. I powered the phone down and let silence fill the room. Not a heavy silence, a clean one, like a freshly wiped slate. I thought about the man I used to be, the one who believed in love, in loyalty, in lifelong friendship. He was good, maybe naive, but he was also kind, and I refused to bury him in bitterness. I'd honor him by building something stronger, smarter, cleaner. No more illusions, no more lies. Just me, whole, steady, unbreakable. Outside, the sun slid lower, throwing long shadows across the city. Calm spread through me, the quiet certainty that I'd done the right thing, even if it didn't feel like joy. Jasmine and Logan had written their own ending. I'd just made sure the punctuation was correct. The collapse had arrived, and they lived in it. I was already turning the page. The next few days were filled with silence and shame, but none of it was mine. I'd shed that like an old coat. Now it belonged to Jasmine, to Logan, clinging to every missed call, every awkward apology, every message that started with "please, just hear me out." I didn't answer. I didn't even open most of them. I wasn't giving them a stage. My story wasn't a platform for their confessions and half apologies. I'd given them enough. Enough chances, enough explanations, enough grace. All that remained was the silence that follows truth. Jasmine moved in with her sister, Claire, who texted me once. "She's a mess, Roy. She never thought you'd leave. She thought you'd fight for her." I read it twice, tasting the irony. Fight for her. I'd fought for us every day. Every time I ignored her late nights at the office. Every time I told myself her coldness was just stress. I fought until I realized I was the only one in the ring. By then, I'd already lost too many rounds. I didn't respond to Claire. There was nothing left to say. Let Jasmine cry on her sister's shoulder. Let her sit in the consequences of her choices. The echo of my silence would be louder than any argument. Meanwhile, Logan's brother, Jared, left a voicemail, voice low, like he was afraid someone would overhear. "You handled this with dignity, man. I'd have burned the whole world down." I smiled as I replayed it, hearing the respect in his tone. Jared was always a reckless one. Swing first, questions later. But even he understood I'd done it right. I didn't call back. Some acknowledgments don't need words. They just need to be heard. I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. It was deeper than that, a steady, honest satisfaction, the sense that the scales had finally tipped my way. They took my trust and turned it into a weapon. Now I was just taking it back. I stood at the window, looking out at the city. The sun climbed higher, painting the buildings in gold and amber. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was breathing my own air, not the recycled oxygen of other people's expectations. This was my life now, and I wasn't done. Not even close. There were more moves to make, more pieces to place. But for the moment, I allowed myself a quiet win. I turned from the glass, picked up my phone, and called Mara. "It's done," I said. She didn't ask for details. She didn't need them. "Good," she said. "I'll file this afternoon. Her attorney will try to stall, but that prenup is concrete. She's finished." I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "Thank you, Mara." "Don't thank me yet," she said, voice cool and steady. "We're just getting started." I hung up and let the words settle. Just getting started. She was absolutely right. Jasmine called 19 times in a row. I didn't answer. Each time the screen lit up, I watched her name flare and fade like a warning sign. I pictured her in our old apartment, pacing, gripping her phone like a life preserver. Maybe there were tears. Maybe her voice shook as she rehearsed apologies I'd never accept. None of it moved me anymore. Her voice had lost its power to break my resolve. Each call was just another reminder that she never expected me to push back. She always assumed I'd snap under the weight of betrayal. Take her back like a fool begging for scraps. She underestimated me. Now she was learning the hard way. Logan wasn't any better. He sent a long email, a desperate mix of excuses and half apologies. Man, I don't know what to say. It just happened. I wish I could take it back. Please don't ruin my life. I read it twice, studying every word, every pathetic plea, and archived it without a second thought. If he wanted to keep his life intact, he should have kept his hands off my wife. The line between forgiveness and consequences has always been razor thin for me, and he stepped on it like a landmine. I poured a glass of water from the office fridge and drank slowly, letting the cool wash away any leftover bitterness. This wasn't anger anymore. It was calculation. I was building a new world on the ruins they left of my old one. And in that new world, there were no second chances, only lessons. Logan was about to learn his. One of his investors, Marshall Lang, reached out the next morning. Her voice was calm but clipped, the kind that meant business. "You should have told me you were in the deal, Roy," she said. I wasn't going to give them the pleasure of seeing me rattled or hearing me yell. I'd handle this the same way I've handled every obstacle in my life, with precision. By noon I was back in my car, and my mind was strangely calm. The world outside looked different, brighter somehow. I'd spent years letting Jasmine define my worth, letting my friendship with Logan blind me to his flaws. Not anymore. I turned on the radio and let the music wrap around me. An old blues track my dad used to play on Sunday mornings, back when life felt simple. The guitar filled the cabin. A soundtrack to a life I was finally taking back. I passed the building I once called home, without slowing down. Let her wonder where the money went. Let Logan panic when investors start calling. I'd made my moves, played my hand. Now it was their losing game. No more apologies. No more chances. I'd given them everything I had, and they threw it away. Closure wasn't something the world owed me. I built it myself. As the sun climbed higher, I realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't living for anyone else. I was living for me. The exit plan was in motion. Tomorrow would be the collapse. The morning air felt like it was holding its breath as I drove back to my office. I took the long way, letting the city wake up around me. The smell of coffee and fresh asphalt reminded me that the world doesn't care about betrayal. It just keeps turning. I parked and paused for a beat, fingers drumming the wheel. Ezra's files were safe on my phone. Every text, every call log, every camera angle. A record of everything Jasmine and Logan thought they'd hidden from me. I scrolled through them again, not because I doubted what I'd seen, but because I needed to remind myself this wasn't a bad dream. This was my life now. I had to own every part of it. Upstairs, the familiar hum of fluorescence and the smell of paper and stale coffee greeted me like an old friend. My assistant, Carmen, glanced up. Her eyes widened just a little. "Mr. Roy, you look." She stopped, unsure how to finish. I made myself smile. I look like a man with a lot of work to do. She nodded, relieved, and went back to her screen. I closed my office door, sat at my desk, and felt the weight of the last 48 hours settle into my bones. I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen for a second before typing the name of a shared drive I just created. For transparency. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jasmine always said she loved my honesty, my openness. Now she'd get all of it. I uploaded everything. Screenshots of her messages with Logan, laughing about me working late while they planned their little escapes. Voice notes she left him, breathy, sweet, calling him baby and whispering forever. Bank statements from our joint account. Every dinner they put on my card, every hotel booking, every Uber receipt, and the photos from Ezra's investigator. The final nails in the coffin, Jasmine and Logan in a cheap motel, wrapped around each other. Her smile exactly like the one she once saved for me. What stung wasn't the betrayal. It was a banality. The way they moved through the world like my pain was just a footnote in their story. I made sure every file was labeled, every timestamp clear. No one would be able to say they didn't understand what they were looking at. No one would be able to say I was overreacting. At the top of the drive, I added a note, no commentary, no signature, just the truth. I copied the link, took a breath as the weight of what I was about to do settled on my shoulders. This wasn't revenge. It was transparency. If they wanted to know who I really was, they could see all of it, every calm, calculating piece. I opened my email and added the recipients. Close friends who stood with us on our wedding day. The pastor who married us. The one who called us his favorite couple. Her family, her parents, her sister Claire. The cousin who always said I was the best thing that ever happened to Jasmine. His family, Logan's brother Jared, his sister Emily, the uncle who toasted our unbreakable friendship at the reception, and just for fun, Logan's investors, the ones who cut big checks because they believed in him. They want to know who they'd backed. I hit send. The air in the room seemed to shift like I had broken a spell. My heartbeat was steady. My hands didn't shake. I'd shown them the truth and let them reach their own conclusions. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to fight. I just needed them to see. I leaned back and closed my eyes for a moment. The traffic outside faded into white noise. I wondered what Jasmine would do when she saw it. Cry, call me and try to explain? Would Logan pitch it as a mistake, a moment of weakness? Didn't matter. Their reactions weren't my responsibility anymore. My phone started vibrating. Messages rolled in fast and hard. Jared, man, I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry. Emily, I always felt something was off with them. You deserve better. Claire, she's here with me. She's a mess. I don't think she ever believed you'd actually stand up for yourself. And then the big one, Marshall Lang, Logan's largest investor. You should have told me you were in the deal, Roy. I'm out. He's a walking liability. I read it twice. A small smile tugged at my mouth. Logan's firm was built on those investments. Without them, he'd be stranded. I didn't respond to any of it. Let them sit with the truth. I went back to my laptop and created a second folder. Part 2. I added the prenup, the clause guaranteeing immediate forfeiture of Jasmine's rights to joint assets in the event of infidelity. Evidence attached. Signed. Notarized. I added the car lease details, the credit agreements, the silent partnership docs. Everything that made it clear. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing the life she built on my name. I updated the drive link to include the new folder, then leaned back and watched the notifications pour in like rain. I pictured Jasmine reading those emails as her world fell apart. I pictured Logan at his desk, getting Marshall's call, watching his carefully arranged life come undone line by line. Tomorrow, you'll have everything, she'd said. I closed my eyes. The phone was cold in my hand, anchoring me in the silence. I set it down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. Everything Jasmine and Logan thought they knew about me was a lie. They thought I'd break, that I'd crawl back, begging for explanations or closure. But I didn't need either. What I needed was control. And control is built one brick at a time. I walked over to the small table by the window, turned on the lamp, and opened a cheap spiral notebook. The pages were thin, the paper rough. Didn't matter. I started making lists, bank accounts, shared investments, the car lease, credit cards. Every part of my life with her name on it was an obligation I planned to erase. One by one. I wasn't angry. I was methodical. My hand ached from writing when a knock hit the door. I opened it and saw Mara, dark jeans, black blazer, sharp eyes behind wireframe glasses. She stepped in like she owned the place, dropped her briefcase on the table, and snapped it open. "Tell me everything," she said, pulling out a yellow legal pad and a pen that gleamed like a blade. I told her about the laughter, the half-open door, Jasmine's smirk, her crown of betrayal, about Logan, my best friend, my brother in everything but blood, who couldn't even meet my eyes. I told her about the prenuptial agreement Jasmine had signed 5 years ago, the one she'd brushed off as just paperwork. Mara's eyes lit up when I mentioned it. "That's our leverage," she said. "We'll bury them." Bury them. The words echoed in my mind like a funeral bell. She wrote with surgical precision, every detail sharp in her plan. "Do you have proof?" she asked. "Photos, messages, anything?" I told her about Ezra, the logs and the footage he'd recover for me. "Good," she said. "We'll file tomorrow. I'll have everything ready tonight." She closed her briefcase with a sharp click that sounded like a judge's gavel. "Get some rest, Roy," she said. "You've got a war to win." Her heels echoed down the hallway like gunfire. Alone again, I leaned back on the bed. The sheets smelled like bleach, washed too many times. I thought about Jasmine, probably still in that bed with Logan. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd fall apart. I almost laughed. They mistook my silence for surrender. They had no idea that every quiet breath was sharpening my focus. I turned off the light and let the darkness fill the room. I wasn't broken. I was focused, and tomorrow would be the beginning of their collapse. Morning crept through the cracked motel blinds, painting pale gold lines across the floor. I hadn't really slept, my mind too busy sorting through every thread of the life I'd built with Jasmine, every shared account, every mortgage payment, every signature that was supposed to mean forever. I'd built that house. I'd paid the down payment. I'd hired the contractor, when she wanted to redo the kitchen. And Logan, I'd funded his boutique firm, Silent Capital, when he said he just needed 3 years to pay me back. I'd believed in him the way I'd believed in her. And now, in one night, 2 people I trusted most had turned that faith into a joke. My phone buzzed. A message from Ezra. Record secured. Backups made. Sending soon. Relief washed over me like a cool breeze. The digital trail was everything. I had to be meticulous, not emotional. That's what separated me from them. The world might call it revenge. I called it business. And business, that's something I understand. I left the motel just as the sun rose over the ocean. The air sharp with the faint salt of the Pacific carried inland. My first stop was the bank. I'd already arranged a meeting with the branch manager through a favor owed from an old real estate deal. When I walked in, she greeted me with that polished corporate smile. "Mr. Roy, right this way," she said, leading me into a glass-walled office. Once the door closed, I didn't waste time. "I need immediate revocation of all joint accounts," I said, calm but firm. "Freeze them. Then reissue access under my name only." She hesitated. Her eyes flicked to my wedding band. "I'm not sure I can." I cut her off, sliding a folder across the desk. Inside, the prenup Jasmine had signed. Surveillance timestamps Ezra had already sent me, all neatly tabbed and ready. She breached the terms. I said, "Clause on infidelity. Automatic forfeiture of joint assets. Documentation's right there. Would you prefer I get legal on the line, or shall we proceed?" Her professionalism kicked in. She glanced at the papers, then nodded. "I'll process this right now." Within an hour, Jasmine's access was revoked. She wouldn't know until she tried to swipe her card. The thought of her face, that flicker from confusion to panic, didn't bring me joy. Not exactly. But it felt right. I moved on. Her luxury car, leased under my name. I called the dealership, spoke directly to the manager. Another favor owed. "She'll be back in an hour," he promised. No questions, no explanations, just execution. Next, Logan's firm. The boutique agency I'd helped him build with my silent capital. I'd let him be the face because he needed the win. Said it'd help him get his life back together. I believed him. Believed in our partnership. Foolish, but fool with paperwork. My investment had been structured as a silent partnership, meaning half the company was mine. A fact Logan had conveniently forgotten. I called Rena, the managing partner, someone who respected me far more than him. "It's time I take a more active role," I told her, my tone even absolute. She paused for a breath, then said, "It's your right, Roy. We'll prepare the transition papers." I hung up and let the moment settle. In one morning, I dismantled the life Jasmine and Logan had tried to build behind my back, and I hadn't raised my voice once. The last stop was Mara's office. Morning sunlight poured through the glass, like the universe was giving me a standing ovation. She looked over her reading glasses, a faint smile playing on her lips. "It's all here," she said, sliding the prenup across the desk. Clause confirmed. Time-stamped proof attached. She closed the folder with a satisfying snap. "I'll file the petition today." She's cut off from everything she thought she owned. I nodded. The tension in my chest finally began to fade. This wasn't revenge. It was closure. She'd broken the contract she'd sworn to honor. Now, the contract was breaking her. Ezra had sent over the footage, Jasmine's keycard logs, text exchanges with Logan, even hotel check-ins from the last month. Everything perfectly documented. It wasn't rage. It was precision, a surgical war.